So once you have the base shading done for the eyes, nose, and mouth, you can start to add what I would call overall shading. Now what you're gonna need is you're gonna need a blending stump, and you're also gonna need a pencil that has darker graphite. So 3B, 2B, I think those are the only ones I have left. Have a eraser handy as well, and you can also have just your regular pencil that you were using handy. Now you'll notice that with this portrait, I have already sort of done base shading on the following facial features. So eyes, nose, mouth. Please see the slideshow for examples of that and some video tutorials. The goal with that is to make those facial features look three-dimensional, okay? So if you're having an issue with some nose shading, okay, just make sure that you hit that slideshow up, okay? Now, one thing that I wanna make sure students know how to do in your actual portrait as well as your other portraits for your morphing is just the overall shading of the face, okay? So while we've added shading to the facial features, we've not yet added the shading to the overall oval of the face, the hair, neck, shoulders, etc. Okay, so I'm gonna use my 3B pencil, and what I'm going to do, and also my blending stump. And what I'm going to do is just kind of using my pencil kind of on its side, I'm gonna add overall light shading, okay? Just kind of around the outside of the face, okay? So kind of like so. I'm also going to add this sort of on either side of my neck, which I'll talk about in a second, or the neck for my portrait. Okay, so the reason why we want to add the shading here, and we'll actually set this graphite powder with a blending stump, so it'll be a little bit less dark, I think, overall, is your face is this, or this face of your portrait is a sphere, so the sides of it curve backwards, so we want to make sure we add that in. Okay, also your neck is a cylinder and it curves back. Okay, so we're adding some of the dark towards the edge. We're also going to add a little bit of shadow underneath where the chin overlaps the face. Okay, so it's going to be darkest towards the sides like so. Okay, now if you have a if you have a portrait that has hair that comes in front, kind of on the shoulders, this area here will be pretty dark, okay? So you can darken that area with some shading with your 3B pencil, or whatever dark pencil you have. Okay. So I'm gonna make this dark here. I think I made this come this way, there we go. The other places that we are going to add some shading overall is in the eye sockets as well, okay? So I'm going to just using my pencil, darken this area kind of where the eye sets in overall. So your eyes kind of set inward in your head. So I'm going to add a little bit of that shading there. If you didn't add the shading on either side of the nose, you can add that in as well. All right, I just aged this person significantly, sort of accidentally. Also, one thing I did want to point out is the top lip tends to be a little bit darker than the bottom lip. So the bottom lip does catch light, okay? So around sort of the edges, it's going to be a little bit darker, okay? Now, right now, I'm gonna use my blending stump. If you've got an extra piece of paper, you can scratch additional tone off onto it. So with the blending stump, you do want this small point here. You don't want to jam this in because this helps you get into small areas that your fingertip cannot. If you don't want any graphite tone on here to start, I would just kind of make sure you go like this on a piece of paper. Now you're going to always set your powder lightest to darkest. Okay, so I'm going to start here and I'm going to gradually set the powder. Okay. I'm going to add some of it back off into the hair just so I don't have another piece of paper here to get the rest of that off onto. There we go. So if you know you need like sort of a medium tone, you can kind of scratch it off into there, okay? Wait, I didn't follow my own rule there, hold up. Getting that graphite off. Okay, I'm gonna add the, set the powder lightest to darkest. So right around here. Lightest to darkest. Lightest to darkest, so in that cheek area. Scribble off the excess where you might need a mid-tone, kind of like right in there, that's perfect. So remember, anytime you're in a dark area, your blending stump is going to have some darker graphite on it, so that you're gonna have to get that off somehow. So I'm kind of using it in the hair just because I never did the shading in the hair. All right, setting this lightest darkest. In the neck, I'm going to do this lightest to darkest, so the middle part should be the lightest. I already made it a little bit too dark, so I'll show you how to pull out some of those highlights with your eraser. So lightest to darkest toward the edge. Okay, let me see. Lightest to darkest around here. Now you don't have to set all your graphite powder. I am doing it just to show you what it can look like. Okay, I'm gonna do a little bit on the forehead, lightest to darkest. Okay, now just as a heads up, the forehead catches a lot of light in a lot of cases, so I'm probably gonna have to go back in and erase some of that. Okay, lightest to darkest. Trying to get some of that dark part in the nose toward the outside. There we go. Darkest towards the outside. Okay. All right. So this is kind of what I have so far for the shading of my portrait. And again, I relied heavily on that blending stump to set the powder. Now, like I said, you don't have to set the powder, the graphite powder with the blending stump a lot. I just did to show you what it looks like. Now, a couple things before I do anything else. I am going to use my eraser and pull out, let's say that I accidentally smeared over something, like the forehead is a little bit too dark. You can pull this back out with the eraser. Okay, so pull your highlight back out. You can add, like, kind of blend a little bit more with the blending stump there. Okay, so I made that forehead a little bit lighter. All right. Let's say that happened to you with the cheeks. So remember, with the cheeks, we want them to be a little bit more, catch a little bit more light overall. Okay, you can bring that back out and then just soften that line with a blending stump. So if you accidentally smeared over things like the cheeks or the bridge of the nose here, all the way down the nose, maybe the base of the nose, if you accidentally, did that, you can pull that out. If you accidentally kind of went over the eyes and there's no longer the highlight there, okay, like your example, you can pull that out. Same thing with the base of the lip here, okay? So you can pull that out with your eraser and then you can go back in and soften that line, okay? This is something that looks like that, okay? The other thing you can also do here is come back in, and once you have set some of your powder, okay, your graphite powder, keep in mind setting the graphite powder makes medium range grays, okay? So you might have to come back in and add your dark darks in certain key areas back one more time, okay? So say I lost it in between the lips here, and come back in and bring that in. Okay, let's say I lost it back over here toward the edge of the face, can bring that back in. Okay, say I lost it in the hair a little bit, I can bring it back in. Okay. So your goal within your portrait is to have a variety, and this goes for all of your frames, a variety of lights, mediums, and darks. Okay, please use your darker graphite and set some of the powder using the blending stump. Okay, you're always going to set it lightest to darkest. Okay, and then scratch off any additional graphite on there when you go back into that lighter area. I kind of scratched mine off just on the hair, and I'm still not really done with the shading of the hair. I just didn't want to waste our time with doing that. Okay. But the goal with this is to have a variety of lights, mediums, and darks, dark values within your portrait. The more of those you have, the more depth and dimension you're going to have. Okay.